guys? Doug Giles here. Rich, you know what time it is, my beloved brother?
Is it time for Warriors and Wild Men?
I think it is. I think it's time for Warriors and Wild Men. How you doing, big dog?
My favorite times of the week. I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Kicking ass, as always, and forever. And taking names. And let's talk about bullying. I'm looking right now on ClashDaily.com. I got a little black girl bullied to death for having a white friend. Now, Rich, this is something that the Warriors and Wild Men subscriber, the listener, I'm talking about the devotee, is not going to hear on CNN or MSNBC. And this is some heartbreaking crap, man. So check this out. A lovely, friendly 9-year-old black girl killed herself because she was being relentlessly bullied for having a friend that was white. And this little girl, she dared to believe and live out what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream was. You know, we don't judge people by their melanin content, but by their character. What's even more tragic is that Mackenzie Adams hung herself in her home on December 3rd. This is, again, a 9-year-old in Montgomery, Alabama, where Reverend King called home and rose to prominence as a civil rights leader. And here's what her aunt says. She was being bullied the entire school year with such words as "kill yourself." Who the hell does that to a 9-year-old of any color, stripe, or religion or nationality? He says, now here's, and again, this was, I'm not even going to get into the race of them that were bullying her. They said, "You think you're white because you ride with that white boy? You ugly black bitch, just die." That's what her aunt told the newspaper. Harris said she's speaking out about her niece's death because she wants to promote anti-bullying. She said there's so many voiceless kids. She says God's opening great doors for justice for my niece. 9 years old, hung herself in a closet because some little shithead wouldn't stop the harassment. Here's what I would do, because my daughters both of them went through it in middle school. Immediately, you know this, into Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, where they know how to, dispatch whomever if they won't shut their mouth or if they try to physically harm them. Too bad that poor Mackenzie didn't know how to take care of herself. But bro, it's getting brutal, man. I mean, that's kind of high school, college type crap, and this is going on with 9-year-old kids, man. That's why I'm very, very anti public school. I know a lot of people like, what are my other options? Private school is way too expensive if it's worth a flip. Homeschooling, I don't really get it. Both parents are out of the house. Public school is Thunderdome and it's crack night in the ferret hut. Yep. It's a zoo. It's an awful or it's a god awful monkey cage, man. It's just an absolute prison. Anyway, you got some thoughts on bullying. Well, I know you got to have some thoughts on this Mackenzie stuff.
I'm glad we started off on that kind of stuff, Doug. I can't even handle that stuff because I got kids. I can't even. It's unbelievable, unimaginable, the things that kids do and the things that kids say, and things are different now because when we were kids, there was no social media. And there was no 24/7 attack. Even if it was at school, it was at school and then school was over and then you're out doing your deal, right? But now it's a constant pressure and people don't realize that. These attacks and stuff that are on social media, they don't let up. And they're breaking kids like that, especially kids that are young.
And some parents, Rich, they pull their kids out of school, put them in another school, and because of the advent of social media, the shitstorm continues. They just
can't get away.
Keep getting hammered, keep getting chased. And that's why I tell parents all the time, you want to raise good kids that are combobulated, that are God and country assets to this great experiment in self-governance and humanity. Keep them away from public schools, keep them away from Hollywood, keep them away from social media, and keep them away from effeminate branches of Christianity.
Yep.
And I'm serious about that, man.
Oh, yeah, man.
You stick them in those environments, then it's a frickin' dice roll. And these dice, Rich, have been rolling up snake eyes for a lot of families. They're wondering, what happened to my kid? And they might not commit suicide. They might not hang themselves. They might not be, just drug-addled, iPhone postured morons. but they could be spit out, these radical leftists. And my mantra has always been, if you let Caesar educate your kids, then don't be shocked and chagrined if they turn out Romans.
Yep, that's right. No, that's totally true. And I'm glad you brought that up to start the podcast, because obviously we're against bullying. We're against tyranny. We're against evil. Those type of things are evil. That type of stuff where you pick on a person like that and you break them like that, that kind of stuff is completely demonic. But what I want to focus on a little bit is that they're using the term bullying to apply to everything. They're using the term bullying to stop free speech, even in school. They're using that term like obviously that's the case that if anybody supports that, they're obviously an idiot, But when we start looking at schools, we've taken away the peer group's responsibility to help to socialize citizens. And what I mean by that is we talk about, study.com says a peer group's a social group that consists of individuals of the same social status who share similar interests and close in age. And it's how they influence socialization during childhood and adolescence. And so there's different, the main agents of socialization are family. Obviously, that's first. The school, peer groups, but I put those together. But they're talking about education system, peer groups, and then, like you said, the media. And those are the things right there. The problem is the family has less influence, I believe, once the kids get their peer groups in school because of social media and because of the joining of the, like you said, the leftist movement, the liberal movement in our education system to socialize our kids. They're trying to conform them to their mindset. But here's what I'm talking about, Doug. When I was in school, and if you're walking down the playground, kindergarten, first grade, and you're walking with your friends and your hand touches your other friend's hand, another guy, what did your friends say, Doug?
I can't say it. I'll never be able to host the Oscars.
They'd say, "Ooh, you're gay." And you were like, "What?" And then everybody'd run around and laugh. And, so you take off and you think, man, I don't want my hand to touch their hand, And then so what you do is when you see somebody do that, you're like, "Hey, you're gay." And people say, "Oh, that's this evil thing." No, it's not. That's called socialization. And we talk about socialization, Doug. We're talking about people. Look, man, our society is based around our nation is based around a culture and identity. But now we've taken tolerance to mean that anything and everything is okay. So now there's zero positive effect of socialization. Let me give you an example. You could relate to this, Doug. Smoking weed. Smoking weed was looked down upon, and it still is unless you're in, Colorado or Washington, or if you're a part of a group that likes to smoke weed. But here's the deal. It's looked down upon. So what do? You find a group of people who support what you do. But no matter what, the majority of society is saying no. So it creates a conflict, and there should be a conflict. Does that make sense? You have some people backing you up, but the rest of society is not agreeing with you. So it creates a conflict that should exist because that's what forms people. We're taking all of those things out and saying everything's okay. And then we wonder why we're losing our identity. And our nation is a nation of nobodies.
Yeah. Unless you're a Christian or a conservative. And then we've got this column we're going to put up on Clash Daily today. I think it's today or maybe tomorrow. This gay guy said he's a gay conservative. And he said, listen, I get more shit for being conservative than I do for being gay.
Absolutely, that's
true.
He
said when I came out of the closet as gay, everybody's like, yeah, strut yourself, show yourself. And when he came out, like, you know what? I also believe in limited government and free market and national security and borders. They're like, here comes the stones, man. It's like, you can't do that. And I think there is, this. I think you're right in that, everything is okay, except for, again, if you're Christian,
anything that's right,
conservative. Yeah. And if you're white, oh my gosh, man, you are society's whipping post now. You're the Antichrist.
Yeah. Well, let's bring it right back to the Warriors and Wild Men. Okay. So I was at the mall in Scottsdale. It's a very affluent mall. I was walking through there, drinking some coffee. And I could not believe the number of effeminate men. Now, I'm not talking about homosexuals. I'm talking about straight men that are effeminate. Why are they effeminate? Because
that's the suit du jour, man.
When they're growing up, you're not allowed to say anything about that. They're literally wearing, Doug, tank tops. Their arms look like they've never even been in the room with a weight, much less touched one. Which when we were growing up, you wanted to have guns. Now you want to look like a girl, right? And then they're wearing a skin-tight tank top with a pot belly and a skinny body with their arms back and their chest out and their butt out, walking around like a girl. You want to know why? Because they didn't go to school with us, Doug, because everybody would have said, "What are you, gay?" And here's the deal. Okay, now let's say somebody's gay. They say, "Yeah, I am." All right. But if you're not, your answer should be no. Then why are you walking like a gay person? See, that's socialization. People say that's not right. Yes, it is right, Doug. Why are you crying? You're 12. You're a baby. You can't say that. Boys have the right to cry. That's why our men are weak. They're emotionally weak. They're physically weak. They have no strength of character, of stamina, because no one said, "Hey, bro, nut up. Come on, man. What are you doing?" But we're taking all that out. And you know what we're doing? Everything's okay. So what happens if everything's okay? There's no identity. And here's another thing. I was reading about nationalism. In a positive sense, in sociology, nationalism is the idea that we exist as a nation of people that agree on some things. And it was talking about what it does is it makes you patriotic. It makes you think that your nation is better than other nations. And to a degree, that's a good thing, right? And then it said this, Doug, it makes you feel responsible and love for fellow citizens. And you know what's happening? Now we're taking that away. We take away pride in your nation. Okay, you get Kaepernick. He kneels down. What does he do? He isolates an entire group of people from the thing that unites us. Now we don't have an identity. No one feels a responsibility. Now we're seeing this great divide in our country, and people are going, like me, are going, "What the hell is going on?" Well, I'll tell you what's going on. There's no correct socialization happening. Parents aren't doing it. The school is all bent on liberal, anti-God stuff. The peer groups are taught tolerance and whatever. You're not allowed to say anything. And by the time they get out and get a job, they're surrounded by a bunch of people that don't want to do anything. And now we're in this mess with no identity.
Yeah, I remember when we pulled Hannah and Reach out of public school and stuff. And this was supposedly a good public school. But again, it was, it was hideous, man. It looked like a prison when you rocked up there. Cop cars everywhere, 15-foot cyclone fencing with frickin' razor wire.
Yep.
And this was, one of the good schools.
That's a good
one. Yeah. And we pulled them out, and I started writing about it on townhall.com. At that time, it was the nation's largest news portal. And everybody's like, "Man, your kids aren't going to be socialized, man. They're going to be warped." It's like, yeah, really. Well, they're still hanging out with people, just not these, vapid morons that are unprincipled, that their parents don't give a flibberty gibbet about. But they're hanging out with world-class fighters. They're hanging out with former diplomats during Ronald Reagan's administration, entrepreneurs, missionaries, pastors, movers and shakers of the planet. So I'll take that appreciate, again, this experiment in self-governance and liberty, pursuit of happiness, Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Yeah, so I'll take that little petri dish of socialization and let my little saplings grow up in that instead of letting them grow up in this anti-American, again,
anti-God
mosh pit of mayhem. And I'll put my kids against anybody's kids, and they were homeschooled.
I'll give you a perfect example.
Hold on. You know why the left hates homeschooling, don't you? Because they can't have your kid for 8 hours to super soak
to make sure
their
they're
brains. Yeah, and it's disgusting, man. And again, parents, if you let Caesar educate your kiddos, don't be shocked when they turn out to be Romans.
My son Luke and I, Luke is 16, we were hanging out, and I know you know Luke very well. And we were hanging out at a place called Cane's. They have like great chicken strips, So we're sitting there, and there's 4 high school kids that look like they're juniors or seniors, sitting over in this booth. And Luke and I are just sitting there eating, and I hear this kid burp as loud as he can. And I like stop eating and I look over there and they're all just sitting there eating like nothing happened. And I look at Luke. I said, what the hell's wrong with that kid? He's like, I don't know. A couple minutes later, he does it again so loud. And I said, hey, take it easy. I yelled across the restaurant and they wouldn't even look. They just like kept looking straight. Luke's like, Dad. I'm like, the hell, man? Where's his parents?
Right.
Nobody taught that kid manners. What's this? You think I want to sit and hear that when I'm sitting here eating? Well, then he told me a couple days later, he said, Dad, we got a kid in my class. And every day he burps as loud as he can in class. And I said, hold on a second. Are you telling me that he just burps as loud right there in class? Yep. I said, what's the teacher say? He said, well, sometimes if he does it 2 or 3 times in one class, she'll say, take it easy.
Yeah.
And I said,
and they know
when I was in school, you
brother,
do that once, you get warned one time. After
Right.
that, you're on your way to the office because that's no manners. What the hell is going on? Doug, you got to be kidding me. I don't care. I don't care who you are. If you're in a restaurant with me, you start doing that crap, you're going to hear it. You are going to hear it from me. If your parents didn't teach you manners, I will teach you manners on the spot. And you know what that's called, Doug? It's called socialization. When the rest of society starts teaching you what's acceptable. But you know what? These stupid idiot kids sit around acting like burping at the loud as you can in a public restaurant is acceptable behavior. And you know what? I'm going to bring some socialization to their world. You know what I'm saying? Where's manners and respect? See, we've taken all that out. No one can say anything to anybody.
Well, here's something that that a lot of parents aren't going to like for me to say. If your kid's a problem, it's your fault. You did it.
Yep.
You know, you see these rogue kids and stuff doing the kind of crap that Rich was outlining. That's you. That's you. They are what's the word I'm looking for, Rich, in my old age? They are a condensation. Is that a proper word? No, not a condensation.
It's not the one you're looking for.
Damn it. Getting old, Rich.
Conduit?
What? No. Something. Con air? No.
Conglomeration?
Condi Rise? No. They're an amalgamation of everything that they've watched go on in your house for many, many moons.
No, that's right.
Yeah, and that's a tough pill for people to swallow. I mean, we were talking, Mary Margaret and I were talking to this guy the other day, and he's like, hey, man, my son, he's off the rails on a crazy train. You know, he's on psychotropes. He's, we don't know if he's coming or going. He's onward. And I was like, you've lived a selfish life, man. I'll tell you right now, the reason why your kid's jacked up is that you've lived a selfish frickin' life.
Yep.
I've never heard you remotely care about your kid until today when he's embarrassing the shit out of you. You've ignored him. You've lived for yourself. You've made fun of your kid in front of other people. You talk about his looks. You talk about you disparage him. And now you're just like, well, man, I don't know where he got that. We got to get him to church. Doug, can you perform an exorcism? It's like, no, I'd like to take care of you first because you're the problem. If I solve him and send him back to your fetid bed of bad habits, and like you said, Rich, zero etiquette and no kind of decorum whatsoever for a 55-year-old man, then all my exorcism is going to be undone when he climbs back into your crib.
That's right. No, that's right. And Doug, these peer groups, like, okay, kids they can have no mercy. They can be brutal, like what we were talking about, bullying to the extent that we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast. Kids can say mean things to kids. You know, they pick on people's
again, where do they
like
where do they get that? Where do they get that? I guarantee mom and dad. But
they need to be worked.
I guarantee mom and dad are talking mad trash.
Yeah.
You know,
so they need
home about
those kids need to be handled. But there's another part where kids telling other kids that what they're doing is not okay is needed.
Right. I agree.
That's not happening.
Bro,
but churches don't even do that, Doug. Now the church won't even do that. They won't even take a stand on simple things, Doug.
Bro, this is going to get me in hot water, but I got to say it. I was watching one of these talent shows, and
you mean the televised karaoke?
Yeah, I was watching one of those. The two girls in particular. amazing voices, just crazy talented. Bro, they look like Macy's Day floats. If you have to, Rich, if you have to lift up a chunk of your body to dry underneath it, you're obese, and that's a problem. And if you can hide small toys in the folds of your fat, that's a big problem, people. And nowadays, Rich, it's like, oh, we just accept you who you are. Of course we do. But you know what? There's this thing called heart disease. You look at some of them, they're wheezing when they're walking up the steps. And we're talking about 16, 17-year-old kids, man. When I was in school, in elementary, junior high, and high school, nobody, Rich, no one was obese. There might be one chunky dude and one kind of chunky girl, but everybody, again, because we walked, we rode our bikes, we're into sport, and that was just something that was normative for us back in that day. Nobody was like that. And again, accept them, don't bully them, don't belittle them. But I'm not going to live in some kind of realm where I know somebody is, because to me, that's spoon suicide. Yep. That is just as detrimental as you watching somebody frickin' jack their vein with China White smack. Somebody, has got a bong attached to them as an appendage, or somebody's got their nose down to a plate of Coke, or just munching on acid like they're Tic Tacs. That is something that is going to derail you. Yep. You've got a purpose. God loves you. He's got a plan, but you got to take care of your damn body, man. And there's no way that I'm going to sit back and if I'm going to relate to somebody like that, and it has nothing to do with I'm better or whatever. It's like you got to take care of that temple, man. You got to treat it as that vessel that God.
But you're not allowed to bring that up.
Oh no!
But you're not allowed to bring that up because that's body shaming.
Look at the fashion magazines.
Look, we're not talking about.
They put,
We're not talking about everybody has to look like a model, but get healthy. Right. Try to take care of yourself, right?
However, whatever your frame is, endo, ecto, meso, just keep it in shape. We're not talking about, again, being some Victoria's Secret model or you and I looking like Brad Pitt from Fight Club. But however old you are, whatever God's given you in your musculature and bone structure, just freaking shape it up, man. You're going to enjoy life much more, unless you're a comedian. And then you got to stay fat because fat comedians are way funny, bro.
Way funny.
Because Jonah Hill was way more funny when he was chunky than now that he's all svelte and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Jonah?
He's still pretty funny, though.
Get back on the donuts, buddy.
He's still pretty funny, though.
Hey, let's, you're talking about the conformity and the bullying and how, we can go to the other side of the spectrum and just get to where, we just don't speak truth anymore. I was going to say you ain't going to believe this, but you will believe it. Policy at the University of Montana Western prevents students from being mean, nasty, or vindictive.
God,
Check this out. In spoken or printed, mean, nasty, or vindictive in spoken or printed or emailed words, facial expressions or gestures. In the Student Code of Conduct at UMW, there are a set of civility standards which makes it against the Code of Conduct for students to be mean or make unruly facial expressions in discussions, as pointed out by the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education Speech Code of the Month. Now, here's something I might agree with them on. They say while discussions may become heated and passionate, they should never become mean, nasty, or vindictive in spoken or printed or email words or facial expressions or gestures. Now, I kind of agree with that. It's like, let's lock horns.
Stick to the point.
Let's lock horns. But let's not move to the ad hominem aspect of debate where we start like, you got a needle dick or something, something like that. Or, you start picking on, again, body parts or stay civil in the debate. So I get that. But, who is now the barometer? Who tells us, Rich? Who tells us what is an untoward facial expression?
Well,
Like
you
if
know,
I go, like Rich, if
there's
I
not
go
going to
like
be
this,
anything. It's not going to be anything that's absolute. It's definitely going to be on a sliding scale
yeah,
decided
it's
by
subjective. No,
somebody.
if I go, is that evil? If I go,
Doug, my face is just rude 24/7 because it's how I look.
yeah, you're kind of like Sebastian Maniscalco, man. His resting face. His wife said, "You got to smile more because your resting face just communicates to all my friends that you will murder them if need be."
Hey, I had a guy tell me one time, he said, Rich, if I close my eyes and I listen to you, I can hear your heart and what you're saying for these kids and stuff. He said, but if I look at you, your body language says you want to beat me up in the parking lot.
Right.
But I just think it's ridiculous that we start taking things like that. Nobody can say anything. Look, how about say it, put it out there. And here's where socialization comes in. Say people say stuff that's not right. Then everybody else should say, hey, man, get off that person's looks and get back to the point. You were getting schooled right now. But nobody does that.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
But again, I think it's a generational thing. And I keep, I'm not saying our, Gen Xers like us, we're the perfect generation, because we were twisted, man. We grew up in Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and we think everybody's selling us a pile of crap, and we trust zero authority and things. However, we could go into these frays of debate, and we did it on campus at my school. I mean, they were rabid anti-Christian. That's when Jimmy Swaggart had just got busted, and same thing with Jim Baker. So they're having a field day with believers and stuff. And we got in some just robust, great debates. And there was facial expressions, there were gestures, people were genuflecting, and people were getting irate. And you know what? It was awesome. It was freaking awesome. And you look at the New Testament, Jesus is turning over tables. Stephen's getting stoned when he lays the
Paul's debating with everybody.
Yeah, and they're breaking bones and stuff like that. Should there be civil discourse, especially at a university which there's supposed to be diversity? Yes, but I'll go out on a limb here and I'll say that the incivility, and I know that I'm partial towards the conservative and libertarian person. I'd say the incivility's mostly on the left. It's not on the right. It's not coming from the libertarian. It's coming from the fascist, cult drinking or Kool-Aid drinking cultists of socialism who has zero tolerance for any idea that hadn't come out of the citadel of their democratic socialist thought leaders. And if you disagree with them, I mean, look at what they did to Shapiro, Milo, anybody, any conservative author that rocks up at a college campuses can't even get through their screed without some frickin' unshorn radical feminist, screaming like a wild hog that just got knocked with a 125 grain Muzzy broadhead.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is my last thought. Well, not on the topic, but for the podcast. This is my last thought on this. There's 4 areas that the sociologists agree that are pretty much the areas that we're socialized. One's family, one's education, the other one's peer groups, and then media, like we've been saying. And so obviously when we're raising our kids, we have control over, that's our family. And so we need to lay out the things that we're trying to teach our kids we want them to become, the right and wrong. Like I asked my son, why don't you break the law? He said, because it's wrong. I said, see, the reason you don't break the law is because you get arrested. That's external discipline. But when you take that external law and you internalize it and you say, I don't break the law because it's wrong, you have been socialized correctly. That's right. That's what we're supposed to do, right? Okay. So with our family, we need to lay out what are the things that matter? What are the character things that matter? What are the things that matter about faith and life and relationships, and work on those things and understand that the next 3 things, the education system, if they're in public schools, is completely against everything that you're teaching your kids. Their peer group will automatically, by definition, since the time of the printing press that separated kids by age group, different podcasts, they automatically trust people their own age more than they trust their family. So the peer group is going to turn them away from your family. and then the media, which we know is obviously liberal and promoting all the garbage that's in the world today. And so we start off with them at a young age. We need to socialize them, but we need to battle in war for our kids. We can't control everything, but we can work with their communication. We can work within their peer group, and we can definitely control the media while they're younger. And then at that point, hopefully they've internalized these things. But if we don't do that, Doug, and you don't have a plan, those three groups will take over for you. They will socialize you will raise kids that you say, who the hell are those kids? Because they're nothing like me.
Yeah. And that's after you spend $100,000 on them to graduate from Columbia U. And,
boom.
And if it even takes that long, because usually by the time that they leave sixth grade, they're already, pretty much dying the wool leftists. And that's why, again, I always go back to martial arts. Finding a great school, because they're carrying old world type disciplines and respect and hierarchy, and just they're a living upgrade to what all the other schleps are doing. Hunting, getting around the disciplines of shooting, whether it's with firearms or archery. Again, you're talking about a very honed discipline environment where bullshit is not tolerated whatsoever. Thirdly, model it at home, parents. And people are like, well, how did it work out with Hannah and Reed, the stellar kids? I said, first of all, I became so much of a handful as their dad in all of my provocateur public activities that they were spending the majority time trying to figure out how to corral me versus what kind of crazy crap we could get into. Yeah. And but model it at home, man, because if they see the hypocrisy, if they see, hey, you don't really buy this, then they're not going to, obey, what you wish them to do. Nobody's perfect, but model it at home. Get them around heavy discipline and martial arts. Get them in a good
church with people that love God. That's one of the major things,
Yep. And there's a lot of bad churches out there, Protestant and Catholic. And if they're effeminate and if they're excuse making, then run. And if you find a great church, man, stay there. I've got a great church. Rich, you got a great church, and I don't think anybody could pry me away from mine, man, because it's cool. Stable, gospel-centered, Christ-oriented, and the people aren't kooky. There's no weird crap coming from the pulpit, solid as a rock. And I tell people all the time, man, you need to go there. And, it's not flashy. Nobody's wearing a glitter suit, Rich. The guys aren't driving frickin' Bentleys and shit and telling people that God wants them to give him $64 million for a new jet, to fly around and preach for Jesus and get closer to God in the heavenlies and do spiritual warfare. None of that garbage. And those are the things to do, man. Warriors and Wild Men, you do that, you model it, you live in a disciplined environment. It's full of joy and fun, and it's a faith community that loves America and the Scripture. Then you're going to be all right.
And monitor the groups that are around your kids, like we're saying, peer groups, their friends, their school, the media that they're watching, the music. Monitor those things, and then you will have to confront the mindset coming from those things, because they're going to try to turn the hearts of your kids away from you and away from God. That's a fact.
I tell you one more thing, parents. If your kids are in public school, okay, go to Amazon and Regnery Publishing. I think I've talked about this before, Rich, but Regnery Publishing has the Politically Incorrect Guide series. It's a must read if your kids are going to be in public school, because they're going to be assaulted. Our Constitution's under attack, Bill of Rights under attack, Declaration of Independence, all that under attack. It's got great stuff on all those topics. Very easy to read, fun-filled facts where your kids can, once your teacher gets up there and starts yodeling about the glories of socialism, it's got a bunch of stuff that you can shoot across their bow and watch them choke and dissolve like the witch and Wizard of Oz when you pour the truth acid on top of their head. And covering all kinds of topics, feminism, Islam, capitalism. I mean, it's a great series that school kids, I'm not getting paid to promote it, but and my kids, like, you're going to read this and you're going to come out a monster. You're going to be smarter than anybody else in that whole frickin' room. And it'll save them. They'll love liberty. And they'll smell it. They'll smell a tyrant in 2 seconds, man.
Yeah, that's good, man.
It's what we need to do, brother.
I don't know. Go on warriorsandwildmen.com. Go to warriorsandwildmen.com. Go there. You can find everything you need from there. Go to warriorsandwildmen.com. That's the place to be. Sign up on our list. Get on the email list so you can get our information and find out what's going on. You stay tuned, and we'll keep you plugged in. No matter where they kick us off, you'll find us at warriorsandwildmen.com.